Hey, good day, folks, and welcome to another edition of Lumberjack Logic Live. I'm your host, Neil Johnson, and I'm so excited to bring this to you, folks. It's a little deviation from my normal uh, topics, but it's something that's very important in the area of public policy, and it's a huge debate that's raging in this country right now. So I'm really excited to bring this show to you. Also, got to mention my sponsor really quickly, MyPillow. That's right, mypillow.com. Use promo code Lumberjack, folks, for big savings on the best sleep products available. And right now, $9.98 with promo code Lumberjack for the roll and go pillows. One of my favorite products that you can just roll up, and I take it camping, I take it elk hunting, I take it everywhere with me. So anyways, free shipping on orders right now too. So I've got a special guest for this show. So excited to bring him in, but I want to show you something first. So I don't know how many of you knew Don Jr. is actually a big hunter, Don Trump Jr. And I'm going to show you, he had just gotten a stone sheep up in British Columbia with a guy by the name of Jason Harrison, who we no longer have with us anymore. He's passed away, but from Kuyu hunting gear. And so I'm just going to show you, he was up in British Columbia on a stone sheep hunt. And so he had just gotten a stone sheep. So there's Don Jr. He's jacked out of his mind up on the mountain.
I'm so proud of you. Dude, that was fucking world class round. Yes.
Congratulations,
Scott.
dude.
So
Nice shooting. Nice shooting.
that was a nice shot, and it's a nice sheep. Anyhow, I'm going to pause that right here, but I'm actually privy to the fact that Don Jr. was just recently out in Idaho talking about an issue that's very important to me. And to discuss this and other topics, I want to bring in my special guest here today, and that is Dan Pickar. Dan, good to have you on the show today.
Yeah, great to be here. Thanks for having me.
Well, so here's the thing. For those who don't know, Dan is with Eastman's Hunting Journals, and I actually subscribe to Eastman's. I get the magazine, and I've got the some other application online. I can't remember what it's all called. Tag Hub, I think it's called. That's it.
Yep.
And anyways, I enjoy reading the articles, but I really actually enjoy watching your hunts on YouTube. So, folks, if you want to, it's really easy to find. You go to Eastman's Hunting Journals and you can look up Dan Pickar and his hunts on there. So they're great. And I'm gonna actually just go right here. I want to show you guys just an intro to one of them here real quick, just so you know who he is. You've never hunted elk. It's the greatest thing in the world.
It is.
And that's bow hunting. And one of the things I like is a lot of your hunts are bow hunts. Like, and this was an antelope hunt as well.
Dan Pickar here. On this Eastman's Hunting TV episode, let's go bow hunting for public land antelope.
So those are actually two of my favorite hunts to watch of all time. Dan, I've actually watched the antelope hunt. I want to say 4 times, and it was just a great hunt. One thing I appreciate about I like watching hunting videos, but I appreciate your instincts, your natural instincts when you're hunting. But tell us just a little bit more about yourself before we get into this big issue. I want to discuss the curious case of Don Jr. and grizzly bears.
Yeah. No, I grew up in the country in Northwest Montana. We were only about 20 minutes from town, but the country lifestyle, I mean, hunting and fishing since the age of 4, going with my dad and showing me the ropes and just enjoying the outdoors. And so it's been ingrained in me and just a part of my life and my makeup, who I am since the beginning of time for me, really. And so, yeah, it just became a lifestyle thing for me and just my passion for experiencing the outdoors and wildlife. And I would say, that's ultimately the foundation for me for hunting is my enjoyment of wildlife. I've always been a nature lover. I've always been excited to be in the outdoors and just witness the natural world. And I'm very fortunate that, my dad introduced that to me at such a young age.
Yeah. I've got 7 kids, and I take them
Oh.
all hunting. Like, every single one of them have all gotten game animals. Okay. Now, like in one case, it might be a squirrel. Okay. And in another case, by the way, squirrel stew is good, folks. So, and I love eating wild game. I think in the world we're in today, folks, and especially if you look at, China now owns Smithfield, which is carrying on, I don't know what percentage of the hog farming operations now in the country. And I actually worked with a bank who is involved in that, in financing, and it's all done on contract now. The independent farm is really disappearing. And so, to be able to go harvest your own game and have clean food is a big thing. So
Yeah.
that's one of the main reasons I like to hunt.
Yeah, no, I don't think there's any greater gift that you can teach a child, and that's to provide food for their family, teach them how to hunt and gather. I think, as you illustrated, that's an incredible thing and very important in this time. And, growing up, we never bought meat from the store. We never bought beef. We very rarely, we'd eat bacon, but we never bought red meat from the store. We grew up on deer and elk. That's just how it was. And it's good for you too. There's really no downside.
No, it is the healthiest. It's the healthiest protein there is. Less than 5% of the calories are derived from fat venison. It's got more available creatine. It's got more available salmon omega. I could go on about all the health benefits. I'm such a big believer in it. And if you're not going to have venison, at least have some grass-fed beef, because that's about as close as you can get. But there is nothing healthier than venison. Grouse. I love grouse, man. Rough grouse is like the tippity top.
Yeah.
It's the best food known to man. But so Don Jr., I was actually in conversation with somebody out in Idaho who I know, and Don Jr. was just out in Idaho as well. And there's a big debate in the West right now, folks. There's a couple big debates in the West. One is over public land. Another is over grizzly bears and the Endangered Species Act. And the Endangered Species Act has been one of the, I guess, most overused and most politicized pieces of law that I've ever seen in my life. And my kids both worked for state agencies in wildlife. Okay, so my son works for the Minnesota Department of Natural Resources as a forester. My other son's doing wildland firefighting out in South Dakota, although he just took a job as a police officer out there. My daughter was doing dispatch for the U.S. Forest Service in wildland firefighting. Okay, all my kids are involved in the outdoors to a large extent. And I want to pull this in, but this is the Endangered Species Act. Okay, the Endangered Species Act establishes protections for fish, wildlife, plants that are listed or threatened, endangered, provides for adding species to and removing them from the list of threatened and endangered species, and for preparing and implementing plans for their recovery, provides for interagency cooperation to avoid take of listed species, and for issuing permits or otherwise prohibited activities, provides for cooperation with states, including authorization and financial assistance. Now, what it doesn't provide, I guess, in the way of cooperation with states is if states want to hunt grizzly bears. Like, so for example, if Montana says, hey, well, we think there should be a grizzly bear season, this Endangered Species Act is saying that they can't. And because the grizzly bears are listed on that, they can't. You're out hunting amongst grizzlies all the time. I watch your videos. You're always in grizzly country. Are you seeing a shortage of grizzly bears?
No, there's so many bears in the West. And, the criteria that they kind of put together in 1972 when they listed the grizzly bear, on some of the criteria that needs to be met for them to be delisted has been met 10 times over. But
Yes.
Unfortunately, with courts and the opposition, they're moving the goalpost. That's what they're doing. And the Endangered Species Act has been just used as a political tool for certain agendas, woke agendas, in my opinion these days. But the home range, the core range from, the greater Northern Rockies ecosystem where I grew up, the Bob Marshall and Glacier Park, and the Yellowstone ecosystem, they're wildly abundant. There's more bears now than ever, and the bears are wandering out into the plains. They're wandering out and over towards North Dakota. I mean, they're just expanding, right? And when populations are growing, they're just eating themselves out of house and home, and so they have to move. That's just the reality of nature. And so, yeah, it's crazy really what we're dealing with for numbers of grizzly bears.
So I went elk hunting my first time 6 years ago, and I didn't know what I was doing, where I was going, or anything. I ended up in the Crazy Mountains after trying somewhere else where we couldn't really get into much. And we actually had, I guess, what is the first confirmed sighting of a grizzly bear in the Crazy Mountains. We were walking up a ridgeline. I could smell an odor. It smelled musky like elk, but it also smelled stronger. It was a grizzly bear on a mounded elk. That's what I came up on. It was myself and my two kids. My son Nathan at the time would have been 15 and Rebecca would have been 13 years old. And we came up on this grizzly bear. Now, fortunately, this grizzly bear just took off. It wasn't the biggest grizzly bear I'd ever seen. Not that matters. I mean, when they want to defend their prey, they'll defend. But we had the wind. It had a visual of 3 moving in, and it just left. So I was very, very glad that it just left. Also saw a big monster golden eagle take off from the tree and a bunch of ravens and everything. I mean, the experiences in the woods are just awesome. Next level. I've come up on a grizzly bear with 3 cubs. That was in the Tetons. Because I do a lot of wildlife photography, and I got some good pictures of them. Sold the picture numerous times. I mean, a mama and 3 cubs. I mean, it's a great picture with some geese in the foreground by a pond. It's a cool picture.
Oh, that's awesome.
But yeah, I don't see that there's like a shortage. I know I read something in Ranch. It was a Ranch magazine, and maybe you can comment on this, but that rancher had 40 sheep wiped out in one night by one grizzly bear. They're moving out the Missouri River Valley and denning up. I mean, they're reclaiming their territory from old. I mean, how many people in my chat right now, just comment, have seen the movie The Revenant? Okay. Yep. Because here's the thing. They picture that like it's in the mountains of Montana. That happened in South and North Dakota. That's where, he was on the Little Yellowstone River, which is flowing right. I mean, it's interesting. I mean, this is out in the Plains region is where that grizzly bear attack happened years ago. So yeah. It wasn't like in the Bitterroot Range or something, I've never watched the movie, but I've read the book, and grizzly bears are moving, and so are cougars, by the way.
Yeah. No, the predator interface is wildly expanding, and our question is out west, and I don't know if you're familiar with Harriet Hageman.
Yes,
one of our representative here. She, she's a huge proponent for delisting the grizzly bear. And, if you look at Wyoming Game and Fish or Montana Fish, Wildlife and Parks, biologists, and once again, meeting those criteria for the Endangered Species Act, all the criteria has been met.
Yes.
I mean, population goals are triple of what was supposed to be the population goals. And so I would say as a whole, people are very upset. The residents of Wyoming, the ranchers, the farmers, all the folks that are living rurally and
yes.
that recreate are very, very frustrated, to put it nicely. And, unfortunately, society and the political system favors, they favor predators for some reason. And I don't know if it's, because of Nat Geo Channel, glorifying them so much, or Disney over the years, or there's the cultivating of the human mind over the course of several decades to love predators and, hands off on management for predators for some reason. And, when you're dealing with the Western hunting and conservation model, which is what the West was founded upon, and meaning what that means is that we're managing all wildlife. Mother Nature can do it, but it's not pretty. And you have all these peaks and valleys of populations across the chart. And when you involve human management, the idea is to level out those peaks and valleys and have more stability. And that's the beauty of being able to have science and technology and modern man to, manage these wildlife populations. And when, we're doing that, that's the model that we're currently implementing. But when you push out a few of these, I call them super predators, wolves, grizzly bears, and mountain lions, but like wolves and grizzly bears, for example, when you're excluding them from management, it just creates all sorts of problems. I mean, we could talk hours for all sorts of problems that we're dealing with out here in the West. But I would say as a whole, all of the super predators, the mountain lions, the grizzly bears, and the wolves are expanding. And, the politicians and the special interest groups are, every day they're pushing for protections. And, we see it in California and Colorado and a lot of ballot box biology that's been going on. And it's quite a battle.
It's wild. I mean, you've got the coast trying to decide everything for the center of this country. They don't have to deal with the realities of it. Now, furthermore, a lot of people talk about, the natural world and natural predators. Guess what? I am a natural predator. From time immemorial, man's been a predator. Okay. It's crazy to exclude us from the predator realm. And one of the things that you're going to run into is when you have apex predators competing for food, apex predators fight, and they do end up killing each other. That's why the grizzly bears are pushing out. So I view it kind of in that way as well. And when I'm in the woods with my tools, I am the apex predator. I mean, I am not afraid to go walking in the woods, carrying my bow, carrying a gun, these kinds of things. Now, a grizzly bear can still maul me, and I'm gonna show you guys something here in just a second, because there have been multiple grizzly attacks in the West. Okay, it's gone up. Okay. Now, one of the things that you're going to find, because this becomes such a political issue, which I have no reason, there's no reason for it to be a political issue at all, because they always talk about it's the science, trust the science. Well, the science says there's, number one, enough grizzly bears. Number two, game management will show you that if you're going to trust the science, we have too many wolves in Minnesota. Do you know we have more wolves than you do? We have more wolves than any other state in the nation outside of Alaska. And do you know what we can do? We can't shoot them at all. Yeah. There's a separate subspecies, they tell us, the Great Lakes wolf, and some judge made a decision that we couldn't delist our wolves. And now I don't know what happened. I got to look into it a little bit more, because I don't know if they're not federally, I think they're still federally protected, but somehow it got moved down on the list. So the fines aren't as big. Anyways, I live in the North Country, and I can just tell you that people up here, I don't think that everybody's obeying the law on these things, and this is what happens when government encroaches too much on people and makes bad policy and bad law. People end up breaking these laws. You can, argue whether that's right or wrong or whatever. I'm just telling you the realities on the ground as I hear people talking. So that's just what is. And so would it be better then to have actual predator management and then actually be able to utilize the resource, the fur from the wolves and these types of things? So I don't know. I want to ask this question of the audience here really quickly, because I do think that there has been, to your point, Dan, a great imbalance in the way that we view this. I think most people are like, oh, well, if you're hunting for food and so long as you're using it and you're not trophy hunting, which is a whole other subject, because it's people like, I go do a doe hunt with my kids. Okay. In South Dakota, it's a youth hunt, $10 tags, and you hunt does. But other people want to hunt big bucks. And what's wrong with that? So we're going to talk just a little bit about that, but I want to show a video here, because this is what happened. And we did actually have the first recorded wolf attack. I think it was a couple years ago. It was in Wisconsin. Wolves attacked a guy out there.
Wow.
So this is going to be more of a thing, but we should definitely be hunting wolves in Minnesota. All right, so here, guys, watch this. So this is a Montana hunter. He was out just in the mountains hunting.
Yeah, life sucks in bear country. Just had a grizzly with 2 cubs come at me from about 80 yards, and I sprayed the shit out of her with bear spray, and then I went on my face and protected the back of my neck. She got my head good. I don't know what's under my hat, my ear, my arm, pieces of stuff hanging out. I don't know what's going on in there. And then my shoulder, it's ripped up. I think my arm's broke, but legs are good. Internal organs are good. Eyes are good. I just walked out 3 miles and I go to the hospital. So be safe out there. Bear spray doesn't always work, but it's better than nothing.
Yeah, bear spray doesn't always work, folks. I mean, that's it's a reality. I can just, if I have to choose between me and the bear, I'm choosing me. The other thing, and the numbers are going up, and I just want to, folks, just so you understand, the numbers of bear attacks, mountain lion attacks, all these attacks are going up because of the management policies to increase the number of these animals. And I know. Do you do a lot of predator hunting, Dan?
I do some. I like to hunt mountain lions and coyotes and black bears, and as a big game hunter, it's my way of, in my mind, of giving back to the ungulates, to the deer and the elk, and the resource that we take from. It's a beautiful resource. It's a renewable resource. That's the amazing thing about hunting in general is when you're trophy hunting. And once again, I mean, I could go on tangents about this stuff, but I consider myself a trophy hunter, but I also consider trophy hunting not head hunting. And what I mean by that is, I'm not just going to go shoot something and leave it and lop the head off because, I have no respect for the game meat or whatever. And there's some places that happens, in Africa with poaching, that's very common. But when I refer to trophy hunting, you have the intent that you want to take a mature animal. Like if you have a buck tag or an antler tag, you want to take a mature animal, an old animal. And that's, ultimately when you see us celebrating in hunting videos, and this can be misconstrued, I feel like, by the general public as well. But, you celebrate like a clean kill. Like that's what's worth celebrating, and an animal expiring quickly. There's no greater gift. And when you're on a hunt and you can harvest an animal, twice as fast, 3 times as fast as Mother Nature could. I mean, watch some videos of, a bear or a wolf taking down a deer, elk. I mean, there's plenty of stuff. There's an Instagram page, Nature is Metal. I mean, gruesome stuff. And so it kind of puts things in perspective. As hunters, we have this responsibility from God to be good stewards of the land and good stewards of animals. And so for me, that's what I celebrate. I celebrate a quick, clean kill, and it makes it that much sweeter when it's a mature animal. Now, some people, they care about the score of an animal. There's scoring systems for deer, elk, and, every horned or antlered animal. But score, to me, doesn't matter. I like an older animal. His teeth are worn down. He's past his prime. He may be even past breeding age. And once again, that's worth celebrating. This is a renewable resource that is either just going to be, wasted, or just he's going to die of starvation. He's going to die of predators. That's not a pretty death. And so that's when you see celebration in hunting. I know that's a hard one to swallow for some people if they don't understand it, but that's what the celebration is all about, is a quick, clean kill, because it's such a serious deal.
Well, it's not only that, like, I mean, it's multiple things, right? It's that, like, I mean, if you guys go watch a video of wolves taking down a deer, and you will see they eat from the back. The deer is alive while it's watching its leg being chewed off. Go watch the videos. I'm not gonna play it on here. YouTube probably go like, oh man, this is like, you're gonna age restrict my video or whatever. I'm telling, go watch it. Go watch it. All of you out there who think that all wolves and cougars and bears should be protected, and all that, and yeah, and tell me which way, if you were a deer or an elk, you would rather go down, to my arrow or bullet, or to the wolf or the bear. I mean, it is absolutely, yeah. Somebody said they'll do that to baby calves too. Okay. It's, I'm telling you, I just absolutely, I find it wild. And I'm going to give you a verse out of the Bible too. It's Psalms 8:6. Thou madest him, talking about man. In fact, I'll go back to 5. For thou had made him a little lower than the angels, and has crowned him with glory and honor. This is talking about man, talking about us. Thou madest him to have dominion over the works of thy hands. Thou hast put all things under his feet, all sheep and oxen, yea, and the beasts of the field, the fowl of the air, and the fish of the sea, and whatsoever passeth through the paths of the sea. We are given dominion over the creatures of the earth, to be stewards, to be harvesters, and to utilize that, to utilize the resources, you like to say. And I love, it's funny. I don't like, I would like to harvest a mature animal when I go out. I mean, it's always fun. And actually, if you can get animals as they're aging up, they do have less years of breeding in them. So that's good as you're managing a resource. So those are all great points. In Utah, there was a huge win for hunters out there with the mountain lion. Did you follow that story at all, Dan?
This lot from 2023 when they deregulated them, basically.
Yes.
Yeah. And that's been a topic in Montana and Wyoming that I've kind of gotten in the middle of with some people and even some friends, that are big hunters and, houndsmen and whatnot. And you'd be surprised the mix of emotions and opinions about mountain lion management. But what Utah did was they designated mountain lions as just like a predator. So there's no season, there's no bag limits, and that's that. It's 24/7, 365. But I think what a lot of people don't realize is that mountain lions are very hard to hunt. I mean, how many times I can think of all the years that I've seen a mountain lion in the wild and could have shot it are probably 2 or 3 in 20 years. And so what we saw, so this took place in 2023. And so we had the whole year of 2024. And what we saw in the state of Utah, there was actually one less mountain lion harvested after they become predators in open season. And so there were less there were less lions harvested by hound hunters. There was more incidental harvests by just hunters out in the woods, running across them and shooting them. But in 1 year's worth of data, it didn't do anything to the population or the harvest numbers. And so you see all this doom and gloom and the opposition wanting to paint the doom and gloom of getting rid of predators, but it's just not the reality. They're very difficult to hunt. They're very sneaky. They make a living by avoiding detection by animals and humans. That's just how they're wired. But what we're seeing here and some of my friends that are houndsmen, and these guys, this is what they do. They run cats with hound dogs and they tree cats. And so what they're doing, largely, not only is it their livelihood, they want cats to chase, right? So their knee-jerk reaction is the more cats on the landscape, the better for what I like to do. And, the hound market to sell a hound dog is extensive. If you can say that this hound dog right here has 50 trees under its belt, or maybe 100 trees, you just raise the cost of that dog from $10,000 to maybe even $20,000.
Wow, really?
For one dog, if they have all these trees under their belt, it's big business. It's big business. And I don't fault these guys. I don't. And they're friends of mine, but this is their livelihood and this is what they're fighting against. So if you see the opposition of saying, these hunters that are saying, we can't have open season and we have to have protections. I mean, that's what they're fighting for. So I get it. But in reality, we're not really killing many more cats. It's just they're too difficult. They're too sneaky. With wolves too. It's so
Very.
difficult.
Very. I mean, it's just wild. Like, I think people have watched Bambi and the hunters come through and they shoot everything in sight. It's not how the deal works.
Yeah.
It's not how it works at all. I mean, hunting is hard work. I mean, we go out to the mountains and we're sitting there running all over the Criken Mountains, up and down and all around. I take 4,000 to 4,500 calories with me per day. Last year, eating 4,000 to 4,500 calories per day, the way we hunt, I still dropped 13 pounds in 7 days of hunting, folks. I mean, it is full tilt. It is hard work. And you're just trying to get close enough to make a play, especially when you're bow and arrow hunting like I am. Jeez, Alfred, it's nuts.
Yeah.
It's not.
And so there's many shortcuts to that. And maybe this is some of the black eye of hunting, maybe is, we call them like fat man hunts or whatever. And you can, go buy a hunt and then shoot an animal in a farmer's field or whatever. And that's reality for some people. And when it comes to management or knocking down numbers, I think that's okay.
Yeah, it's fine by me.
Yeah, but it's not how we choose to
That's
hunt.
not how I hunt.
Yeah. And that's the beauty of it, right? Because you can choose your own path. You can choose your own methods. I like to bow hunt. I don't really rifle hunt anymore, but I enjoy the challenge. I enjoy getting close, and I enjoy hearing that animal breathing, hearing it chew. There's no cooler experience that you'll ever find in the wild of getting close to like a big animal like that and having it that intimate of an experience. And would I have to like kill that animal necessarily? No. I mean, the actual death of an animal is not my favorite thing. I don't like to see a big old bull elk die. I don't enjoy the death part, but I've realized and I understand that that's a small part of the big picture, right?
Yeah.
And the big picture is what's important for some of the reasons that we've been discussing here.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, again, it's like just even from the standpoint of, so like a lot of people, like there are literally people out there who think that you just go to a store and buy meat and like, so it just shows up at the store.
Oh yeah.
This is real, people. I'm not even kidding you at all. Like, they don't even think that you actually have a cow. I mean, it's so crazy.
Yeah. And so on a bit more of a serious note, which it's not really, but that's what we're dealing with is the opposition like that, or like, the humane society kind of taking over the California parks and wildlife. But these people that don't want predators off the endangered species list, they don't believe we should be hunting. These are the people that believe that humans should have no role in nature, that we don't belong out there. We don't belong in their territory. Interaction. This is what they believe. I mean, I've talked to them and they truly believe that we have no role and we don't belong out there and that nature should decide things on their own.
Yeah. I can't with these people. I mean, it's really hard for me to get there because I'm natural. I'm part of the natural world, folks. I'm like, and I go out there and I'm gonna hunt and I just this last year I bought a with the grizzly bear attacks on the rise the way they were. I did buy a Kimber 10 millimeter
Nice.
with some special ammo for bears and stuff. I kind of went back and forth on that, and I know a lot of people got 10 millimeter isn't big enough. Just throw some stones at them or whatever. But I've talked to enough guides and whatnot, and I think the 10 millimeter is fine, and I can shoot it very accurately and put more loads down range in a quicker period of time. So,
Yep. You should look up a YouTube video that I did. It's how to survive a bear attack. And in 2019, I was black bear hunting and I was charged and I shot a black bear at point blank in the forehead as it was rushing me. And the actual encounter is not on video, but I went through it. And it's when you bring a pistol into the woods, there's a difference between having a pistol and then being able to use it. And so it's extremely difficult. So you can have bear spray and a firearm and just look at how many people are still getting attacked because it's so difficult to defend yourself. And so I will say, disclaimer, like get out there and practice, shoot moving targets, and like really get familiar with your firearm, with your handgun, to become proficient. Because let me tell you, when it's the heat of the moment and you have a kill zone and their brain, the size of probably an orange is what their brain is, that's not much room for error.
No, not at all. Not at all. That's a great story. See, that's the thing, you come out of an experience like that and you got a good story. The guys were always like, but it's a great story.
Absolutely.
I almost died, but it's a great story.
And I haven't even told you about the grizzly bear I shot when I was a freshman in high school in the chicken coop either. I mean, we're just getting started.
Oh gosh, tell us that story.
Yeah, so I grew up at the base of the Swan Range in Flathead Valley, Montana, up by Kalispell, but it's East Valley. Yep. And so this is, 98, 99, 2000, the rise of the grizzly bear, in that greater northern Rockies ecosystem, that Glacier Park. I mean, there's a lot of bears, and there always has been, but all these bears, they come into the valley, into the Flathead Valley, and they're coming from the Swans, and they're coming from the Bob Marshall, and they end up in the river bottoms and backyards of people's houses. And, we're country folk. We had chickens and ducks, and we grew a garden on our property as kids. And so kind of, one thing that I took over as a kid was the poultry. I liked raising chickens and ducks, and we did pheasants one year, but the constant battle, of course, is predators. And so I had a predator-proof chicken coop, and skunks and foxes and weasels and all the small animals that you normally encounter, eating your chickens, that you can expect. We dealt with those, but when a bear comes in, there's really no stopping them. And they can tear chicken wire, they can tear fence, they can plow through plywood. I mean, I've tried it all. And over the years of probably a decade of raising birds.
All right, I'll get. Oh, something just came in the background. Yeah. Sorry.
No worries.
Yeah.
Over the years of raising poultry, we would have encounters where bears would come in, and you lose them all. They eat them all. They kill them all. And half the time you don't know if they're black or grizzly bears. But
yes.
One year, and I remember this like it was yesterday, it was Game 7 of the World Series. I was watching the World Series, and our dog was on the porch right by the sliding glass window, and she started kind of growling under her breath, and her hackles went up. And the chicken coop, it's a big shed, and it was probably about 7,500 yards from the house. And she was looking up there, and so I let her out, and she went taking off up to the chicken coop. And we got a 20 gauge Remington 870 pump shotgun there with slugs. And, I've shot other animals in the chicken coop before, coyotes and other stuff over the years. And so you don't expect a bear, but by time I get up there, the dog is running back around the corner of the shed to me, and I can see this large object, and there's a light like in the shed. And so it's like casting shadows. And so I could see it was a bear. I didn't know what it was, but I pulled my gun up and shot 2 times as fast as I could as she came out of the chicken coop in that bear. And, in the dark, it was in the dark, big muzzle flash. I couldn't see anything. And so I shot 2 times as fast as I could, and I turned around and took off running. And, my dad comes out, and he's like, "Are you all right?" He's yelling up there. And we had no idea what happened until the next morning. And, we called the game warden, and he came out, and we started looking around, and we found a dead grizzly bear. And so talk about a surprise. And we would see grizzlies, every now and again. It was not uncommon, but usually at night, usually, they come up on the deck or something like that. And once again, you could never confirm if it was a black or grizzly bears that were getting our birds, but we see black bears too. But if you Google Daniel Pickar, my full name, grizzly bear attack, you'll see newspaper articles from back in the day. And I was just a little 5'2" pipsqueak with my 20 gauge trying to protect my chickens.
Here, so this is why I had a little background noise there, because I just wanted to find this video. So on my Neil the North channel, I've got Electrify That Freaking Bear, how to deal with problems. So this was the one rating our chicken coop. Okay.
Oh, you okay?
So that's our chicken coop in the background, and then this is the bear right here, and that's a. I mean, for those who don't know, that's a big black bear. I mean, that's a
5.
That's like, that's a big black bear. It's a big boar. It had a big pumpkin head. I've got some other pictures of it on other videos because I was this is what's really funny. My family was like praying for the bear to go away. Now I'm trying to make videos, Dan. I'm like, I've got an idea for a video here. I'm gonna put up a little electric wire and I'm gonna have video cameras out there and I'm gonna get this bear reacting to the electric fence and leaving my chickens alone.
That's right.
The stupid bear never came back after they prayed the bear away. I never was able to make my video. I mean, I just had still pictures of it.
And that's usually the type of encounters that you have. If they, we call them a good bear, a happy bear or whatever, they run from human presence, right? That's what we want. That's ultimately, what makes a bear a safe bear is a happy bear. And yeah, I mean, the electric fences and the trail cams that we have now, like that would be so handy back then. I don't know if they really made much of that back then, like a backpacking electric fence. I mean, yeah, you could have bought a horse fence, and that's probably ultimately what we should have done is electrified everything, and that probably would have alleviated a lot of our problems. But yeah, man, these things, they work at night and they sneak around, and that's just how predators operate. And so the trail cam thing, that would have been fun though, to have that back in the day.
Oh gosh. I mean, I just want to get a video of that bear getting just shocked and jumping back and leaving my chickens alone.
Yeah.
It was actually eating the chicken feed. Just kept tipping over the chicken feed out there. And and it's funny. I mean, I remember one time we had even just something as simple as like an otter are protected, and they're on a federal list. So they're actually a really kind of a big thing. You can trap otters in Minnesota, but we had one eating our chickens and our ducks. So we had egg-laying ducks, and we found the evidence of it. So I called the DNR, and we live like in the middle of nowhere. Okay, like we're off the grid. Our driveway's a mile long. We're out here because it's nice. It's peaceful. Okay. You gotta listen to loons at night. The DNR guy tells me how I'm supposed to solve this is by playing loud music. I was thinking, why don't we just shoot the thing? It's like eating my chickens,
right?
Eating my guineas, eating my ducks. I mean, it's funny. I never even knew that otters would eat ducks. I just thought of them as like clams and fish and stuff. But no, they're opportunistic predators, man.
The weasel family, pound for pound, are probably the strongest animal on the planet, and that's from wolverines, otters, ferrets, mongoose, mink, weasels. They're so tough, and they're an ultimate predator. They really are. Like you'd be amazed on, and I believe a skunk is a part of the weasel family too, but they can kill. And that's another thing to consider too when you're dealing with wolves and mountain lions. A lot of people think that these predators only kill what they eat. And that is not true at all. That's not reality. And we had a skunk kill 25 of my pheasants in one night. And they're opportunists, like you said. If they have some sort of food source that's going to be easy for them to catch, they're probably going to do whatever it takes, especially meat, to get after it. So they're serious business. These predators, it's ugly.
Well, and I think one of the things too is we look at this, and so I know Don Jr. was out in Idaho. He's talking with people, and they're talking about the grizzly bear and the delisting of the grizzly bear, these types of things. The other big debate raging right now in the West is over public lands. Now, I kind of from initial statements that I've heard, and I know Senator Mike Lee, who I tend to like on most issues. They want to take this federal land and turn it back to the states, which then means like some states have written in their constitution that then they have to basically sell that land. We're already in a situation where billionaires are buying up the West. I just watched a video the other day about billionaires buying up the crazy mountains. There's the Yellowstone Club. A lot of you probably aren't familiar with that, but it's billionaires. They pay $70-some thousand a year in fees. Plus they have to come up with at least $10 million to buy a plot of land in the club and so on. But it's all these billionaires. And, the West, they are buying up mountains. mountains. Okay. I'm out in, I was hunting in the Little Belts, out by White Sulphur Springs, and Cutler, the former quarterback of the Bears, owns a big chunk of the mountain out there. It's all these Richie Riches buying this all up. And so, those who aren't, the idea of having public land available for public use, my gosh, I mean, you think of how much, and now we're finding out what they've been wasting all our tax money on. So, it's just like, I mean, we should at least have some public land for the money that we're paying in. And I'm opposed to actually, turning that into, private land at this point. Now, we saw the standoff years ago during the Obama administration with the ranchers and the feds. That was the Bundy Ranch, I believe it was. Yep. That all worked out. I mean, they got to continue grazing their cattle, and it was kind of a hairy situation there for a while. And I just, the land should be used for grazing. I think some of the land gets overgrazed even. I mean, I've been out there, I've looked at plenty of it that gets overgrazed. So I mean, you're out there in the West, Dan. Talk to me a little bit about public lands, the debates of this, and where you're coming down on it. I'm guessing you're probably coming down more where I'm coming down, but I'm not pro selling off our public lands. I'll just want to make that clear.
Yeah, me neither. And I'm conservative, and there's still things that the Republicans do that makes you shake your head of pushing things too far. And that's one thing that I think it's too far, and definitely against it. The tricky part is, and all these lands are, they're managed so differently, from state land, and then the BLM, and then Forest Service land, and then there's Bureau of Reclamation. And so they all kind of have like different purposes, and they were put in place for different reasons. But the reason why we have Forest Service lands from back in the day was from cattlemen and cattle grazing. And so that's why we still have public lands today, or Forest Service lands today, is because of cattlemen and the American West, really. And so they're all managed differently. And then we have state lands, and state lands, they're supposed to be profitable for the state, school trust lands, right? And every state has a little bit different regulations on, can they be developed, mineral rights, et cetera. If they can drill on them and there's oil, they will. Not all of them are developed. But, ultimately, and state land obviously is not federal land. It's governed by the state. And I do see a lot of, there's a lot of state land that is not developed, and it's public use and hunting, and maybe it's a wildlife reproduction area or something like that. There's all different sorts of management. But I think that's key. And I don't have anything against wealthy people. I think wealth in the country is good, but it is sad to see sometimes when, like the Wilkes brothers, for example, they're Texas oil tycoons, and their goal is to have the largest, I don't know if this is still their goal, but when they started buying up ranches in eastern Montana, is to have a contiguous property from basically southern Montana to Canada, like, a large amount of contiguous land. And they got the money to do it, so why not? But it causes a multitude of other issues when you have folks that come in with a lot of money, and they're trying to keep, public guys off of adjoining public ground to their ranches, and the problems that it causes. So
corner crossing.
Yeah. That's a huge thing in the West, is corner crossing. And for people that don't know, if you look on to any land ownership maps, or even just a gazetteer, a state gazetteer for maybe Montana or Wyoming, you can see all the goofy property boundaries. You have yellow is the BLM, and then Forest Service is usually green, but there's all these, it's section lines and these corners of sections that are just touching. So it's just two sections with corners touching. And so there's been a lot of this rule, and the law says that, you can't cross from one corner to the other But now you throw in technology and you throw in real-time GPS, and you can prove that you did not step on any private land while corner crossing. And so it's a gray area now, and it's caused a ton of problems.
This is what he's talking about, folks. So that's what's called a checkerboard. So if you can see the green space, and then it's just normal, green, normal, green, normal. This is the Crazy Mountains. And I bring this up because it's one of the worst checkerboards in the nation. Although Wyoming, the entire state through the middle from east to west, running that one stretch is all a checkerboard. It's wild.
And that's a totally different scenario because, that was railroad land from back in the day when the railroads kind of blew through, southern Wyoming. And it's funny because a lot of that stuff is, you could call it uninhabitable. It's desert, it's rough. And so, if land that doesn't have a lot of value to the untrained eye or maybe to the general public, the railroad or whatever, maybe there might be an oil company. They don't care if the public uses it. But once again, you're out in these public-private land interfaces that aren't really as desirable. But then, like you said, the Crazy Mountains is a big one with checkerboard. It's beautiful. Land's worth a lot more there. So you have these values that are going up, and all of a sudden people care about corner crossing because that landowner doesn't want anybody on the public land behind their house, right?
Well, the real deal here is, and this is where I have a problem with it. The real issue for these ranchers is if they can claim that you can't get to that piece, they're selling more private land that's actually government-owned land. So it's not reality. But what's happened is, for those who don't know, there were some hunters, I think out of Missouri, who came up to Wyoming. They got ladders. They brought ladders in and corner crossed, and it went to court, and they were deemed it was okay. So basically, I mean, by case law right now, corner crossing is legal. Now, the ranchers are then suing them for millions of dollars to damage to their property. What, like they walked on it, the whole thing's absurd. But what's really the issue here is that these ranchers don't want you accessing this public land. It's public freaking land. Like you and I are all paying taxes. I mean, it's totally land we should be able to use. And then the outfitters don't want it because they're doing lease agreements with the land ranchers. And then that blocks up more land for them to have exclusive rights to hunt.
So this is like this explosion that happened on this corner crossing debate because these guys, they knew what they were doing. They brought a ladder, and they happened to be lawyers. And so they came out ready to bark up that tree, and they knew they could win in court, and they did. And so now, what you have is damages claimed by these landowners because now their land isn't as valuable because they don't have this landlocked private land. And like you said, look at any of these real estate ads for ranches out west, and it's always talked about 5,200 acres of landlocked public land behind the place that's accessible. Like it's a perk to buying this ranch, like it's theirs. That's like it's your access, and so that's it's so tricky. But they came out and they set a precedent, and they won that court battle. And from what I've heard, I mean, it's I believe that was a district case, right? So I mean, that's federal, so the precedent's been set. And so now basically, like the state attorney is telling wardens and whatnot that don't write citations for corner crossing. But in the rule book, like it's still a gray area, but it's kind of a mess. And then so I've guided for outfitters as well. So I'm coming from the other side of the fence here, literally.
Yes.
But these landowners, I've heard the commentary from landowners and outfitters, and they're saying, I'll build a 20-foot high pole on that corner so then they can't cross because what they're claiming is these lawyers are like, you don't own the airspace. I can hop on a ladder and climb over, but the landowners are like, I'll put a 20-foot tall fence post and you can't climb over. And so it could really create a range war of modern times if the right people got involved and you have the right antagonists that want to challenge the wrong landowners. It's kind of crazy.
I think they did do that though, and the ranchers were told that you can't build a fence that high. I think that was another thing that came out of that.
Yeah. I just hope
So-
nobody gets shot over it.
Yeah, I know, right? Seriously. I mean, this is people are it's wild. I mean, I've read a lot about the old range wars and the cattle days and the old
Yeah.
Dan, I don't know. I'm curious. Like, you ever watch Quigley Down Under?
Oh, I love that movie.
I love that movie too. But you know,
Yeah.
the bad guy in it's Alan Rickman. And he's
Yep.
like, some people feel like they were born in the wrong century. I was born on the wrong continent. Well, I do feel like I was born in the wrong century, man. I'll tell you what, the late 1800s, that was me. I should have been there. I mean, I would have loved it. I mean, you know, post Civil War, the great expansion out west. Oh gosh, it's beautiful.
Times were tough, but man, you talk about freedom and free place to go. I mean, still have to worry about getting scalped probably, but
Yes.
other hardships that you'd have to endure. But yeah, I'm with you. I always say it's like, man, I wish I was born in like the 70s or, you know, at least, or the 60s, just the heyday of hunting, right? When nobody was doing it. There was no technology and everybody was using open sights on their rifles and recurve bows. There was no such thing as compound bows yet. So, I mean, times have changed. I still believe we're in the good old days, but yeah, it definitely, it sounds appealing to just stepping back in time a little bit.
Oh gosh. Well, you know, I picked up this whole Western hunting game too late. One of the sad realities is too, and I've talked to game management offices out west about it because I really think this is terrible. Like, if you want to take your kids out hunting, some states are pretty conducive to it. Montana does have price tags. Wyoming's got reduced prices, but some states do not. And then they'll only let you hunt on reduced price tags with kids if you take does or cows, right? Well, you know, for a kid, like sometimes, like I was on a hunt one time and the only thing that walked in front of us was antler. You want your kid to have an opportunity. And so what they're doing then is trying to protect the antlered for the people who are the game offices are turning it into a resource to profit off of. And then we have now, and this could go down a whole other rabbit trail that we probably don't have time to tonight, but then you've got more and more people being hired at the game offices. And then you have more and more money being spent on wildlife biology and wildlife biologists, and they're netting deer from helicopters, and they're doing all this. And is all that really necessary at the end of the day? And should tags be as expensive as they are? Because right now, if you want to go hunting in Montana and get a combo tag, this is $1,200.
Yeah.
That's a lot of money.
Yeah. It's crazy. And, you know, I'm glad that Doge has been uncovering all this stuff that we've known that has been going on for years, right?
Yes.
And as a former Forest Service employee, when I was in college, I worked for the Forest Service in the Bob Marshall.
Oh, really?
In the wilderness. Yeah. And I did that for 4 years. And so, for example, with this whole Doge layoff thing, like they shut that district down. I mean, there's no more trail crew. There's no more nothing. There's no funding anymore for operations to proceed in the backcountry this summer because it's seasonal work, right?
Yeah.
And but still at that level, and this was, so you have like, you know, regional forest district offices, and then you have, you know, local district offices that are even smaller. But even at this really small level Forest Service office, there's still just wasteful spending that you look at this and you just like, what?
Yeah.
And a lot of like regulation and what goes on in these, you know, federal departments is that with grants and so on and so forth. But okay, guys, if we don't spend it, we lose it. So we have to spend this money this year, otherwise we're not getting any money next year. We're going to get less money next year. So it's incredibly inefficient, and I'm glad they're doing it. And there's going to be growing pains like what the boys up there at Spotted Bear Ranger District are going to be enduring because there's no funding anymore. But I truly believe that it's going to get sorted out, and the people that, you know, we need to have in place and we need, and, you know, these are public servants that are going in there, and life's different in the wilderness, but before you know it, you understand why, you know, there's a big budget for trail crews to clear trails. So, I mean, they run the backcountry with crosscut saws and cut trees out of the trails so the general public can use these wild places.
Yes.
And to me, there's a lot of value in that, but this is just growing pains. But I guess the point that I'm making is that even on these like really small districts, the wasteful spending. So, as we've been seeing, saying, I told you so, of what's going on in Washington and the wasteful spending, I guess it's nice to have that stuff come to light because it's pretty bad.
Yeah, no, we're going to see as it goes through, and I think, like you said, it's growing pains. I mean, you're going to see in all these budgets. My kids are working for the government, and they tell me about it. It is like we're going to lose our budget for next year. Well, why does it even operate that way? Number one, I mean, you should almost be like, well, wow, you guys save money, and now you get an award. Everybody gets a little medal or something, because you save money. You did things more efficiently. That's what we need. But I mean, I just saw something the other day on private sector versus public sector, right? Federal employees versus private sector employees. It's basically double the wage by working for the federal government now. That's insane. I mean, you can't, that's totally unsustainable. You can't have the people who are paying in the taxes to pay the people making half of what the people who are taking the tax money make. That just doesn't work.
Yeah.
It never will.
No.
So it's going to be interesting. I think it'll all shake out, and I mean, you're gonna see, like you said, growing pains. I mean, there's going to be things that are shut down that may get restarted later or whatever. As public says, well, we really want that, but there's a lot of things like, I mean, when they have government shutdowns, I typically don't even know what the heck's going on. Like, what did they shut down? Well, we shut down the non-essential. Well, if it's non-essential, why are we?
Right.
It doesn't make any sense to me.
Yeah, it's crazy. And it's interesting too. My brother, he's been a Forest Service employee for since 2006. I mean, he's a career, government worker. I poke at him in a fun way all the time. And he recently changed jobs to be a dam operator for the Bureau of Reclamation from the Forest Service. And so he's on a probationary period, but this is also not good for him because, they're saying that probational employees are kind of on the chopping block at the higher part of the list to be cut. And he hasn't been cut yet because, well, I'm not exactly sure why, other than he's kind of an essential, worker he's an engineer, overseeing a dam operation. So, but he's still in jeopardy of losing his job. And so, and he's as conservative as they get, and he gets it. And, he's one of those guys that was like, trying to make a difference by working for the federal government for all these years, because it seems like that there is so much wasteful stuff going on, and he's a good guy and a great family man. And so, I hope he doesn't lose his job, but it'll be, short run, I think, for him if he does. And, the people with talent, I mean, you're not going to have an issue finding another job. I mean, I know that's easy for me to say on the outside looking in, but, he's a smart guy. So, he's worried, but he's not cussing the Trump administration or Elon Musk over it. I can tell you that.
Yeah, no, I mean, you have to have like a kind of a perspective on it where you're like, okay, so cuts were made. You have to make yourself so valuable that those things don't matter. And I've always told that to my kids too. Yep. And you have to make yourself so valuable that even when you're working somewhere and you need time off to, let's say, go hunting, they're not questioning you on that. And their greatest fear is losing you, not, you going hunting. And so I've always taken that approach in life. And if, you just make yourself more valuable, and that's what you do. So, but it's going to be an interesting run. We've talked public lands, we've talked Endangered Species Act, totally overused. We didn't even talk about, people, your bridge projects, your dams, all these different things get shut down because of Endangered Species Act. It is so overused. It's ridiculous. So when you're talking to because you're a very politically active audience, when you're talking to your representatives, talk to them about those issues. Delisting grizzly bears, for Pete's sakes, especially if you're in the West. I mean, there should be a big push for that right now. You have an administration that's friendly towards that, especially with Don Jr. and understanding, and he hunts. These are the things that we can actually see happen out there. Yep. So again, Dan, what socials do you most operate on? I mean, your YouTube, you're under Eastman's there. So it's Eastman's Hunting Journals. If you want to see some of his hunts, they're fantastic, folks. Brian Barney is another great hunter there in Eastman's. I enjoy watching his hunts as well.
Yep. Yeah, we have a lot of facets and channels of media here. Instagram, Facebook, YouTube. We have a variety of podcasts. Me and Brian Barney, we do a Life of a Bow Hunter podcast, which we talk all things bow hunting. And so that's a bi-weekly podcast that we have. And, I write for the magazine still, Eastman's Hunting Journals that you're a member of. And we actually made a code for you for anybody that's interested in the journals or Tag Hub. And we also have a couple learning courses, the Deer Collective and the Elk Collective, for anybody that wants to learn about hunting in general from start to finish. And, how do I pursue an elk? How do I pursue a deer? And all the tips and tactics and tricks. It's also included, but just use code Neil at checkout, all lowercase, just Neil at checkout on eastmans.com. And we have an elite bundle, and I'll get you hooked up with this too, Neil, on this. But the elite bundle is all the magazines. It's the collectives, the Deer and the Elk Collective, the informational courses, and you get Cryptech gear. We have knives, knives that you can pick from. I think we're down to 2 or 3 different knives, and it's all for like $89. And you can buy just the magazines, or you can buy just the course, but eastmans.com, everything that we do is on there. And yeah, use code Neil at checkout, and I believe it's 15% off your order. So
okay, cool. Because that actually, you were doing the Cryptech vest.
Yep.
It's a beautiful vest. Because I actually I ordered that because I ordered that earlier this year. Because you guys had sent me, because I always get your publication. And so, I get the knife. I was like, this is crazy because the vest costs more. And then I get the knife, and then I get the magazines, and the whole, I'm just stupid. I'm just doing this deal. So,
yep.
I love the magazine. Actually, I like the members research section. I've been using that because I'm trying to figure out where to go in Wyoming. I didn't apply this year after talking with you. Coincidentally, I'll be applying for Wyoming next year. I'm going to try for Montana again. I'm going to put my kid in for New Mexico because they have oryx hunts down there, and the Ute draw is not too bad odds. Still not great, but you've got a much better chance than I do.
Yeah.
So, and then I want to go try barberry sheep down there. So
those are fun.
Yeah.
We call those the poor man sheep. Bighorn sheep. It's so rare to get a tag, but you can go hunt an oddad or a barberry sheep for not much money, or find a trespass fee in Texas. They're in Texas or New Mexico. You can draw the tag. So it's pretty cool. A lot of opportunity out there. And I know a lot of people that just go hunt a cow elk, and there's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with hunting antlerless animals, and especially a lot of private land interfaces in the West are dealing with a lot of cow elk, a lot of elk problems. And this is probably a whole nother podcast, but the way that the grizzly bear and wolves have reshaped what herd movements and where they live, it's totally reshaped everything in the last 20 years. And so we're seeing a lot more elk on private land, and landowners having to deal with them, and just kind of overpopulation issues on the private interface. And that's hard to manage, right? Because some of them don't allow hunting, and some of these areas are kind of populated, and so like having a lot of predators is not practical either. And so we're in a weird time, but that's probably a whole nother
somebody commented their handle is from the east to the west. I'll pull it up here really quick, but I'll probably cut into your face too much there. It says it doesn't help that they are introducing the Canadian gray wolf, not native, in order to control, and between diseases wolves spread from state to state, and the fact that wolves kill just to kill. Exactly. Well, and then, like when I told that grizzly bear story earlier, a grizzly bear isn't killing 40 plus sheep in one night and eating them all, folks. That's not, that grizzly bear just went and killed those sheep. So, we've talked cougars. We covered a lot of ground here tonight, Dan. I want to thank you for coming on. And any closing thoughts?
Yeah, we're in a very unsettled and evolving world, it seems like, and unfortunately wildlife management is so political nowadays. And so we like voices, and we like people that get it to speak up. And it's not politics. It should be science, and science-based management is very important. And so yeah, if you're not into hunting, or you haven't done it before, I mean, you can start small and take your kid rabbit hunting, go squirrel hunting. I mean, you can do baby steps. And so enjoy the great outdoors. God put us here to be stewards of the land, and enjoy the fruits of earth. And I think, what is it, Acts 10 verses 10 through 13, where he said, Peter's hungry, and God let down this giant white sheet with all sorts of birds and animals, and I think it's creepy crawlies and birds of the air. And he says, "Get up, Peter, kill and eat."
Yes. And I think too, like the story, ESA, go fetch me some of that savory venison that I love. I mean, I got all kinds of verses on hunting. So
it's great
folks,
stuff.
Thanks for joining us tonight. We're going to see you on the next episode. Remember, subscribe if you're new, and go check out some of Dan's hunts over there at Eastman Hunting Journals. And he's also up on Instagram. What's your handle on Instagram again? I follow you there.
Yeah, just Dan Pickar, Pickar. Yeah,
All right.
At Dan Pickar.
All right. See you guys on the next episode. Peace out.
See ya.